Board of Directors to order. Opening up, let's go ahead and do our roll call vote. Tanny Stephenson.
Present.
Ken Anderton.
Present.
Tom Hansel is present as well. Let's see. Emily, any public testimony today?
Nope, none that I know of.
Surprise, surprise. So just a note here, I will need to excuse myself just a little bit after 2, just meeting conflict. So I apologize, Bill, for missing out on the asset liability update. Peggy, any other changes to the agenda today?
Yeah, we were gonna, there was part of the CIP, we were talking about the PGE, and we're gonna pull that until next meeting.
Okay, thank you. So we all get a little extra time back.
Yeah.
Hong, I had you up with executive session.
Yes. If some, do we have,
The SDIC board will now enter executive session pursuant to ORS 40.255 and ORS 192.355, Section 9, subsection A, and ORS 192.660, Section 2, subsection F, for the purpose of discussing confidential legal advice and attorney-client communications.
awesome.
Take it away, Hong.
All right. Well, thank you for giving me this up.
And returning to our normal SDIC meeting format. Thank you, Hong. Evan.
Hey, good afternoon, all. I'm actually going to pass it right off to Mark and have him get into the presentation so we can save a little bit of time because we're running just a little bit behind.
Good delegation. Mark, I can't read lips.
Mark, you're still on mute.
Thank you. Sorry. Okay. Well, we'll dive right into it. And per our previous discussions, there was a list of requests for information. Today, we're going to focus on items 4, updated project cost estimates in general, and number 6, options to secure a 35% match. And you'll see more information on item 5, budget cash flow needs at the format meeting. We wanted to present these. These were the feasibility study objectives were built way back during the charrettes prior to the TSP being developed. I think these should all look familiar. They speak to the flood protection goals of the project and resiliency and reliability, etc. In that, I wanted to run through some of the district and local benefits that have been received by the project. I wanted to remind everyone that normally core feasibility studies require a 50-50 cost share. In this case, that was not necessary due to the storm supplemental package by Congress. These projects were designed for a 50-year planning horizon, and we benefited from this in that a fragility analysis that was more in depth, it could have been afforded by the Levee Ready Columbia effort, was completed through this process. A very important note, 4 of the FEMA certification projects, and probably the most complicated, expensive ones, were completed under this, this effort. And we developed a compromise raising the level of protection in Pen 2 while addressing the residents' concerns in that district. Also, this goes back to the first bullet, railroad embankment, which has possibility of cascading failure scenario was addressed, as well as the environmental justice concerns for communities living behind the Pen 2 cross levee. So some of the constraints we faced was the project was only authorized for flood safety versus other business lines. There was more limited local control of the process than we are normally accustomed to. However, that being said, due to situations such as in Penn 2 and other places, we did push the Corps to expand their public outreach effort beyond what they originally anticipated. And that kind of goes into the third and final item about community involvement. We definitely pushed the bounds of the normal Corps process in terms of public process, even if it was not at the level that maybe we're accustomed to in this region. One of the big findings was the Corps' detailed geotech, hydrologic modeling and economic benefits modeling. All that drove home the point that we are no longer dealing with the storm that the design storm that these levees were built for. A lot of their modeling confirmed that the warm winter events that release snowpack in the middle of winter into local basins that don't have as much flood storage as the Columbia River dams, that is our target. The 96 floods were that sort of storm, and case in point, we're looking outside at a very soggy set of weeks that are setting us up for a very large melt and snowpack that the system wasn't designed to handle. In the right set of circumstances could put us in jeopardy. It was more a design storm than it was in the past. I can skip in terms of SDIC. We identified some new stability and seepage problems that we didn't anticipate going into this. Strictly looking at certification projects identified, and then it also further identified the need to upgrade pump stations, of which SDIC is the largest benefactor out of the entire system. Just touching on the non-structural measures, you haven't seen this perhaps since the tentatively selected plan. These did not change at all from the tentatively selected plan to today. And I'm going to dive into the preferred plan and SDIC. I think everyone is familiar with it. Again, I just mentioned the pump station. We're increasing capacity of the pump station. The preferred plan proposes to standardize voltage, provide emergency generator tie-ins. There will be a new trash rake, and the entire station will be elevated so that the working elevations don't give us such a narrow range of operating conditions as we're under now. So that'll improve its effectiveness and its resiliency to a major internal drainage event. We're also addressing the I-84 Troutdale Outlet Mall low spot and this new fragility concern that was brought up during the study in the northwest corner of SDIC, improving the geometry of that levee stretch from Sundial Road to the pump station. I'll just kind of go over the map. Obviously, the SDIC area is down here in the lower right. I should say the Troutdale Outlet Mall. And then this is the large stretch of levee work with the pump station in the northwest corner you're all familiar with. So what does this cost? Well, right now we're focused on PED. The total cost of PED is roughly $11 million. That is about approximately a 2-year effort. It'll kind of span over 3 federal fiscal years. The total local match is $3.85 million. And Colin's going to talk to you a little bit about allocation of that across the districts momentarily. I want to note that the PED costs do count towards a 5% minimum local contribution. So when we look at overall costs later on, a lot of it is real estate, but there is a minimum cash contribution. This close to $4 million goes towards that and pays that down ahead of time. I also want to point out the construction numbers, which we may talk about more in terms of sequence at the format. Those numbers include a 25% contingency, and the real estate lands costs which is built into that, includes a 35% contingency. So there is some buffer. I want to explain this interest during construction. That's the Corps' nomenclature. What it really reflects is inflationary costs that we see in actuality when we let contracts and do relocations efforts during during the construction phase. So that is not actual cash outlays. That is just kind of CPI basically built into the project. And these are the grand totals. So I will take a brief moment to entertain some questions and then turn it over to Colin.
Any questions for Mark?
All right. Great. Done my job. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mark.
All right, thanks, Mark. I wanted to apologize. I'm not able to join by video, not for lack of trying, as Emily can attest to, but my wife is teaching kids, and I guess they gave preference to bandwidth to the first graders, so I apologize. But I wanted to quickly give you an update on another thing that was requested by the boards, was to discuss potential cost allocation methodologies. And before going through those potential methodologies, I wanted to highlight a few considerations, including that timing being very important. So this project requires authorization to move forward. And right now we are lobbying or working towards being included in the Water Resources Development Act of 2022. And if we are able to be included in that WRDA 22, it would mean that for the pre-engineering and design phase of this project, we'd be entering an agreement with the Corps for early 2023. If that's the case, then the existing districts would need to contribute to the cost of the pre-engineering design phase. The next round of the Water Resources Development Act would be 2024, with the Urban Flood Safety and Water Quality District's goal of being up and operating in 2025. That actually aligns with the timing of when we would need to go into that PED agreement with the Corps. So just kind of two different pathways, and I'm going to present some of the cost allocations with the optimistic expectation of being included in this WRDA 2022. There are a few issues that we considered for this cost allocation, mostly making sure that we present a number of methodologies, making sure that they were equitable, also to discuss where and how partners could help in that, a combination of methodologies, if that would be applicable. And then really, I think in later meetings, we'll need to discuss if a cost benefit of the actual negotiation on the allocation is worth it versus actually just splitting the costs during this PED phase at least. And then a couple of these allocation methodologies do take into account measuring the impacts of cascading failures of the system. So that's sort of the mutual reliance or approaching this as a system. So let me just go through these methodologies quickly, and then I'll show you sort of how that applies for SDIC. The first methodology is just directly based on those estimated costs of the projects in each district. So pump station and levee remediation and SDIC, that cost would be just directly applied to SDIC, at least for the PED phase of that. Options 2 and 3, the levee mile and acreage, is something you as SDIC board members are more familiar with, because that is some of the methodologies that we use with our MCDD and SDIC IGA for things such as levee maintenance. The kind of more complicated, but probably better representations of the benefits received or costs incurred are the next few. So the first one is replacement value. And replacement value is using the Department of Geology and Mineral Industries, Oregon's DGAMI's HAZIS analysis that they did for the districts. I think that was finalized in 2018. So using those numbers, HAZIS is a FEMA tool. It's for hazards of the US, and it takes in real flood loss data from around the country and then applies it specifically to to our geography. And so that replacement value includes the building costs, the contents, and the inventory that would be lost at a 500-year flood. And so the building costs are pretty straightforward, especially around total replacement versus partial replacement. The contents are things like your furniture and the shelves in a distribution hub, and then the inventory are the things that could be removed. So total replacement value is the composite of those numbers. The economic benefits, which we'll show you in the next slide, those actually come from the Corps' feasibility study analysis. Those are the economic benefits that the Corps used to determine the national economic development value as well as the regional economic development values. And they are based on the various flood scenarios modeled. And so it would be the realistic economic benefits of those different flood scenarios. And then the project cost plus economic benefit is using those economic benefit in the project cost, but it's a little bit more kind of a utility methodology, a composite of both the benefits received and then the cost incurred being what those project costs are. And then of course there's the option of just, especially for the PED costs, just splitting it evenly, a quarter each. So Mark, would you go to the next slide, please? Just wanted to highlight what this looks like for SDIC. And so you see a range from 7% all the way up to 25%. And so there are a few different ways to cut that as far as when we're looking at the $3.85 million. So actually, maybe if you go to the next slide, Mark, be able to take a little bit of a closer look of what that actually means. So that $3.85 million, just as a reminder, that's your pre-engineering design cost. That is 35% of the roughly $11 million that's required for that phase. And then for SDIC, those numbers that you see, the range of 0.27 million up to 0.96 million, that would be spread over a little more, it's basically 3 fiscal years, but it's really 2-year cost. So how do we pay for that? Or how would that allocation be secured? And I think you go to the next slide, please, Mark. There's a few options that we need to explore and ways to secure that match. So there's, of course, using the district budgets and the assessments. There's also seeking cash and in-kind contributions from our partners. So that would be either bringing that up through the Levy Ready Columbia table. That also would be looking to the cities and other property owners, securing easements and other things like that that would lower our overall cost. And then there is actually negotiating with the Corps on in-kind service credits. And that will be particularly important during the construction phase, but it's something we definitely will be pursuing that buys down our overall kind of cash outlay on the work. And then there's a few different public and private options around grants and loans. So for applying for public and private grants, there's grants that are available through the state, through other federal agencies, as well as through private organizations such as the Pew Charitable Trust that we'd like to pursue. And then seeking public and private loans. The public loan option that I think you all as SDIC board members are most familiar with would be pursuing things through Business Oregon's Infrastructure Finance Authority loan program, but also looking at other options. And then for private loans, that really would be looking at things like a bank loan or potential IGA or MOU opportunities with different cities that would provide some of the cash. So there's more work to be done on that. We'll be able to send these slides so you can dig into that those 2 matrices in the previous slides. I know that didn't have a lot of time to go through it, but at this time, take any questions.
Questions for Colin or Mark? So I'll throw one out, Colin. Can you can you show the total project cost, the PED and construction in those same tables? Because I think for me, I would benefit from seeing the total outlay for the project versus incremental PED, and then construction is another decision.
We can definitely show that. Yep. And the expectation, and I think it is definitely important, yeah, for you to be able to take a look at that. But the expectation is for the construction phase that the new district would be fully operationalized by that time. And so, you know, as far as the breakdown by districts may be less instructive, but I think that that is something that we have already on the slide.
Yeah, and I'll share, I'm a little torn, you know, by the different options. They're all so dramatic. You know, my head just goes to project cost.
Yeah.
We represent SDIC. Those identified Army Corps projects are ours to handle. So that's kind of where I'm leaning right now until I hear from others. Kenny, looks like you're ready.
Sorry,
Are
since
these
Colin
with
is on mute.
multi-benefits?
Sorry, I just want to let Colin know, since he doesn't have video, that we are showing the construction costs distribution. Over. Sorry.
Thanks, Mark.
Are these costs with multi-benefit?
No, we're only talking about that as it relates to the certification projects. So this is just what the Corps is recommending. And this, what you're seeing right now does not include PED costs. That was the previous slide. This is construction, which we think will be under the new district.
Okay.
And I would just add, it would be under the new district, and the assumption would be as well that that is what we'd be going out for a GO bond for, is to help cover these local costs.
Right.
Ken, you have a comment?
I was just going to ask, have you just calculated how much the cost per acre that would be if say the landowners had to take on those costs versus the larger?
Oh, to incorporate into an assessment?
Yeah.
We have not calculated that, and I guess we would probably need to do some cost, spreading the shoulders there. And so I guess might need to talk to Casey about how that would be done if it was done purely by assessment and we didn't pursue any other option. But I think that is something we can discuss, how to properly show you what that would mean for per acre.
It also bears mentioning that 13 million of this is lands costs, many of which are public lands. So if there are concessions by public landowners on the real estate costs that could help defray some of these overall numbers, we would still get credit for those costs towards our match. So.
So this is the pump station and the 2 levee problems, right?
These numbers reflect the entire cost of the project and our share of it. The 47.57 is about 37% of the overall project cost. It also includes the contingency I spoke of earlier. So it includes your work as well as work throughout the other districts.
Right, but SDIC would get basically the 2 levees fixed and the pump station for the 7.8. Okay.
Correct.
So Colin, I think I recall the Corps talking about they would be potentially starting on the west side and then going east on projects. Am I correct in that?
Yes, or there's, yeah, it gets a little bit of bouncing around. Mark, can you give some detail on that?
And I'll just interject. My interest is kind of understanding the cash flow. When would
Yeah.
SDIC have to have funds available to move to the projects.
And we're going to cover this in detail at the format as well, but Mark, maybe you can give a preview.
Yeah, just to keep it very brief. Yeah, there are 3 increments. One is Pen 1, that's the first increment. Pen 2 starts shortly after, but will take a little longer to finish design. That covers SDIC projects as well as MCDD projects and the MCDD Pen 2 cross levy. So it's a significant portion. The third increment is the Pen 2 levy work, and so your district is kind of right in the middle of it.
Appreciate that. Danny, did you have something else?
I'm good.
Anything else?
Nothing else?
Colin and Mark, thank you so much. This was really helpful.
Thank you.
Mark, if you could take your, are we done with the PowerPoint? Oh, excellent. Good call. Let's see, Bill has joined us. Bill, you ready for the CIP update?
Yes, sir. Good afternoon, all. We provided a CIP update for one project that is on your books, and that deals with the gravity flow system. I can walk through that information if you'd like. I'm trying to pull this back up. Or if there's any questions that you have about that particular project, I'll be happy to answer those questions. As you well know, the Drainage Master Plan is also a capital outlay project, and that's going to be covered under the next agenda item.
Questions for Bill? Thanks, Bill.
Okay, thank you. I'll turn it over to Amber.
Welcome, Amber.
Welcome. Nice to see you all again.
Great seeing you.
That was a really quick update, Bill, so I'm ready.
He's a man of few words.
Yes, as long as you guys get the information, I guess it makes that process much better. So let's discuss the Drainage Master Plan again. You guys are getting used to this process. I just want to once again thank you for providing some really good feedback. Ultimately, it's going to make it really makes the final plan that much better and useful for you moving forward. Based on our last conversation, well, let me ask this. Would you like to talk about the Drainage Master Plan itself right now, or the CIP update?
I think we're on the Drainage Master Plan.
Yes. Okay. So my question was, they are kind of one and the same, as this project is expecting to kind of come to a close and get off of your books. We just wanted to provide a glimpse of the process, schedule, and budget over the years. And that is what the one pager outlines for you. I wanted to know if you had any questions related to that.
Tanny, any questions for Amber?
No questions on my end.
On the master plan?
Keep looking.
So if you will look at that one pager on the CIP update, it does break down the expenses per fiscal year. It also shows you that we have, based on kind of the schedule delays that we've had on getting this delayed, I did have to enter into another contract with BNC to get this work finalized, which did put us over our estimate for this fiscal year. But Bill and I have worked together to manage that budget within our existing approved budget from you folks. So that means that we hope to account for that with other projects to make up for that let's say, estimated about $3,000 over budget right now.
So Amber, just for, and the rest of the board, the board does not have the one-page CIP updates in their meeting packet, from at least the version that I have. And so Amber just described to you what that change is. It looks like we're going to be a couple $1,000s over what the projected budget was. And I've had a chance to go back through your approved budget, and we found such 3 cases where we're going to be under budget from your approved line items for the sediment master plan, the integrated habitat management, and the East County code negotiations. All are going to come in under budget. And so the $3,000 plus that Amber reference should be covered by that. So we can move money from those to cover this amount.
Amber, I think the increase was partly due to us having to call the contractor back to make some amendments.
While that's necessary, yes, it predominantly was, and additional staff time to make that completion.
Annie, you have your pen up?
Yeah, Bill, I really appreciate you managing this within the existing budget. Appreciate that effort. I gotta just say, for the record, I'm quite a ways north of disappointed that after the contract that we had with Brown and Caldwell, that they would come back and zing us for $3,000 to really adjust what I consider to be like one paragraph. I mean, do they have a detail of these expenses? Like who they had to fly where that cost that kind of money to do that little bit of work? I mean, I've just never seen this. At the end of a project, it's kind of like everybody wants to get it done. They all kind of work together. And these guys are like Annie Oakley and just stick them up, you know?
Can I ask a question, Amber, on behalf of Tanny? Of that 3,000 that's over the budget, how much of that was staff time?
A very small.
Okay, just want to make sure.
Tammy, you're obviously you and I talked reviewing that language, and your sentiment really rings with me too. As BNC is the author of this document, they did have to run it up the chain. They do have their finance folks and unfortunately folks that had to be involved to just make these changes. And we're going to manage that within our existing approved budget, but it is unfortunate, but you're going to have a better quality document in the end.
Yeah, it's just something that I know the city of Troutdale will, but we really need to consider this in the future. The next time we go to bid with these guys is, you know, there needs to be some type of a plan to address crap like this from happening in the future with them, knowing that they're willing to do this to a customer.